Welcome to Some Things You Should Know, the show where we're going to be talking about some relevant and not so relevant news stories that have been going on in the world this past week. I'm Lauren, let's get started. The first thing you should know, the UK has held elections and whatnot. David Cameron won against the Labour Party's Ed Miliband, who is not to be confused with the Steve Miller Band. They thought it was going to be a tight ballot, but it wasn't, and the leaders of those parties who have lost have stepped down immediately so their respective parties can begin to rebuild. David Cameron's victory means that the country will probably be voting on whether or not to stay in the European Union. For those of us ignorant about governments outside of our own, here's a little bit about the British government. The Prime Minister is in charge, not the Queen, and he lives at number 10 Downing Street, which is the equivalent of the White House. There's the Cabinet, which is the group of all of these senior heads of government, secretaries of state, and ministers of stuff. The ministers are chosen by the Prime Minister and are in charge of their department or ministry. Think Harry Potter, but instead of wizards trying to prevent muggles from finding out about them, it's just muggles doing everyday ordinary jobs. Then you've got Parliament, which is the House of Lords and the House of Commons, who act separate from the government, and they look at the government and pass taxes and laws. The Prime Minister is the principal figure in the House of Commons. Further proof that governments everywhere are just confusing. The second thing you should know, Ebola-free? Liberia has gone 42 days without Ebola, but we've still got to be careful. The World Health Organization has told them to be cautious about any outbreaks flaring up or people infected with the disease coming back into their country. About 4,700 people have died of Ebola in Liberia with this past outbreak. But now it's been found in someone's eye? A physician who contracted Ebola in September, who no longer has any traces of the disease in his bloodstream, has found traces of it in his eye. They don't think it's contagious, but for those who have survived the disease, they should be on the lookout for possible eye infections. Yes, how creepy. It's like contagion in real life. Break out the hand sanitizer. The third thing you should know, the earthquake in Nepal. This happened on April 25th, so yes, we're a bit late to the game, but deal with it. It was a 7.8 magnitude earthquake and the most powerful disaster to strike Nepal since 1934. The earthquake triggered an avalanche on Mount Everest, killing 19, making it the most deadly avalanche in the mountain's history. Hundreds of thousands of people have been made homeless as entire villages have been flattened. Nepal is one of Asia's poorest countries and has little ability to provide the funds for reconstruction on its own, but over 50 countries have given various forms of aid and supplies to Nepal. The fourth thing you should know. An unmanned, out-of-control Russian spaceship has come back down to Earth after failing to reach the International Space Station. It was loaded with more than 3 tons of food and supplies, and most of it burnt up in its descent back to Earth, but a few pieces survived and fell into the ocean. This isn't the first time something like this has happened to Russia's space endeavors, as last year, Russian scientists had to re-establish control of a satellite in which a team of geckos were copulating as part of a study into the effects of weightlessness on lizard mating. Because clearly, that's a priority on things to spend research money for. Star Trek Next Generation, we're not. The fifth thing you should know. The Duke and Duchess of Cambridge welcomed their second baby on May 2nd, Her Royal Highness Princess Charlotte Elizabeth Diana, who is now 4th in line to the throne, pushing the lovable Prince Harry back to the 5th spot. Her name has tons of significance in royal history and tradition, and yay, babies. But speaking of famous British people, fun fact, Stephen Hawking has helped many preteens with his science. When asked what he thought about Zayn splitting from One Direction and the advice he had for those heartbroken fans, a question on everybody's mind, he replied finally, a question about something important. My advice to any heartbroken young girl is to pay attention to the study of theoretical physics because one day there may well be proof of multiple universes. That's right, in a whole other universe, things could have turned out differently for One Direction and they could still be together. So tweens of the land, study hard, and maybe, just maybe, you can find a parallel universe where you are married to Zayn. I personally will be looking for a universe in which I am Iron Man. That's all for this week. Thanks for watching, have a great weekend, and happy Mother's Day.